Hey YouTube, this is New York Half-Ass Prepper. This is a video response. Well, I guess YouTube doesn't allow them anymore, but I'm going to put it up anyway. Video response to my friend Bushcraft412. He put out a video explaining how to make a New York State compliant rifle, and I just wanted to chime in with this, and also double purpose of the video, give you an update on the SAFE Act. He was basically showing his rifle where he added this particular grip, or whatever you want to call this thing. This is the Exile Machine, whatever it's called, Monster Grip or whatever that goes on these rifles. But there's a lot of misinformation about the SAFE Act that's floating around out there, and that is by design. If you look at the state's website, it basically is serving to misinform the public, because it's just an interpretation. It's not the actual law. You have to read the actual law and see the dates and see what's legal and what's not. The state is always going to interpret it to their particular agenda. So if anybody wants to correct me, you can. I'm not going to get offended, but as far as I know, these rifles right now, this rifle as you see it, is legal to possess if you already have one in New York State, and it will be legal to possess continuing. However, if the state has its way, you will have to register this firearm in April. However, there is probably 5 or 6 lawsuits going on concerning the SAFE Act, and it gets very confusing. There's an update on one of the lawsuits. It gets confusing because the Tresmond law firm, the guy attorney upstate, Jim Tresmond, great guy, talked to him on the phone personally, is he's representing the clients in 3 or 4 of them. So people say, oh, it's the Tresmond lawsuit, but there's actually three or four lawsuits originating from the Tresmond law firm. Specifically, there's one case, Richard, I can't pronounce this kid's name, Dywinski, I think it's pronounced, versus the state of New York, Cuomo et al., and he's suing over magazine limits, banning weapons in common use, specifically shotguns, and a couple of other, he's suing over late registration violates your Fifth Amendment rights. You cannot be forced to incriminate yourself. It's Fifth Amendment we have in the Constitution. So if you register late, they really can't prosecute you, because you can't be forced to incriminate yourself. So that remains to be seen what's going to happen with this registration, if it ever gets off the ground and so forth. But I understand that it's a huge mess with the state police right now, and they don't even want to do it. However, with all of that being said, the update to the lawsuit is the Dywinski versus New York case is ready for trial. And what that means is they've gotten rid of all the preliminary stuff. And from what I understand, the state did not even answer this lawsuit. They have not filed a written answer. And the way it works is the state does not get defaulted upon. It's just the way it works. They get a lot of privileges in the court. But nevertheless, the lawyers are very optimistic that we're going to win this lawsuit on the merits. It's going to be it's an Article 78 proceeding, and it's going to be a jury trial. So a jury is going to decide whether the law is constitutional or not, and whether the law has affected this Richard Dywinski in a negative way. And if they rule in our favor, then that means that basically the SAFE Act is considered unconstitutional, and it will no longer be the law in New York State. They do not have to get an injunction against the law. They just have to get a ruling. And in fact, the ruling is better than an injunction. However, the SAFE Act was written in such a way that it has what's called a severability clause, which means that they're going after like 3 or 4 things in this lawsuit. If they win this lawsuit and they strike down those 3 issues out of the law, the rest of the law still stands. It's called a severability clause. So if one part of it is found unconstitutional, or 3 or 4 parts of it, the rest of the parts are still in effect according to the way the law is written. So all of the cases that have been filed against the SAFE Act go after 2 or 3 of these features. They just pick the most offensive ones and they go after those features because it's impractical to go after every aspect of the law. So that's it. That's the update. The Dywinski versus New York State case is ready for trial. The trial is going to be held the first week in January. They don't have a date yet. There's a tentative date in the e-court system. But according to what the lawyers say, that's not set in stone yet, but it will be that week. And the judge is mindful of the looming deadline that's going to affect both sides. And so they're going to have the trial, and they will issue a decision on the merits before the registration deadline. So, with all of that being said, all of that nonsense going on with the law, I would advise people in New York State that this rifle is fine as it sits, permanently attached brake. It's illegal, there's no, the bayonet lug has been ground off, and it has a fixed stock. This is a New York State compliant rifle as it sits right now. However, you may want to think about, I wouldn't say go out and buy this stuff and put it on your rifle right away because there's no need for it, but you may want to think about if you want to register your rifle come April or not. And if you don't want to register the rifle, you might want to consider purchasing one of these type of products to make the rifle not an assault rifle under the SAFE Act, and therefore not subject to the registration. However, if you have no problem with registering your rifle, which I think you're a jerk if you actually do register your rifle, but if that's the decision that you make, you go right down to the state police or whatever, you get the form online, and you register your rifle. So, that is the update. That's my voice response to Bushcraft. And that's it. New York Half-Fast Prepper, I'm out of here.